Well, thank you for the introduction, Jared, and for the invitation here tonight. So we're looking at the importance of play, and in particular focusing on how play helps prepare your children for school. Because most people think it's very structured, that you need to be ready for school, but we're helping you understand tonight that it's from birth that children start getting ready for school. Okay, and that how the team here are doing an amazing job to help prepare your children for life. Okay, I'd like to also acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land in which we are gathering and discussing and learning on Gadigal land. I'd like to pay and Bidjigal land, sorry. I'd like to pay my respects to elders past and present, and also extend the respect to any Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander peoples joining us tonight. Okay, so we're going to start with the heavy stuff first, and then we'll get into the fun stuff. So those of you who may be a part of the committee or have asked questions or researched before you brought your children here, you might have understood that centres go through assessment and rating process, and they get a rating. I know that this centre went through 2 years ago, was it?
3.
3 years ago, and they received a rating of meeting. And what that means is that there is the national quality standard that is the minimum benchmark for quality. And it's set in, it's got the 7 quality areas, and each quality area focuses on different aspects of the everyday that happens in the centre. So you might come in and observe some things and just think that it's just happening, but there is intent and purpose and meaning behind everything that happens. So part of the National Quality Standard in Quality Area 1, which is actually the largest quality area, it's got the 9 elements and 3 standards. That's the educational program and practice. So that's what the team work really hard in, ensuring that your children are not only nurtured and cared for, but also provided, like I said, the best start in life and through the educational program. And part of that is the early years learning framework, which is this. Oh, of course I've left it over there, so I'm going to step up and get my props. So this is what it looks like in printed version, but most educators and teams work on a online version, either a PDF or there's actually an interactive web page. So the early years learning framework was brought in 2009. It was written first in 2009, introduced in 2010. And it was a big change for the sector. This is now the refreshed version. So in 2022, they did a refresh just to make sure it was still relevant. And this is all about play-based learning, okay? That it is about child-led experiences, so child-directed learning, which is in the National Quality Standard, and very child-centred. So the educators get to know your children. They get to know every aspect of it. And when I say child-centred, it's not only your child's interest, but it's their knowledge, skills, ideas, abilities, culture. They get to know the whole child, each individual child too, and then they plan for how to extend your children's learning. And they have 5 learning outcomes. So this is a pretty big document. They work very hard on this. It's pretty big and extensive. They have the overall vision, and then the key themes or concepts of belonging, being and becoming. Then they have the principles, the practices, and the 5 learning outcomes. And you'll see that when you see the learning outcomes, it has children have a strong sense of identity, children are connected with and contribute to their world, children have a strong sense of well-being, children are confident and involved learners, and children are effective communicators. So what we've done in early childhood, and I've seen this, like Jared said, I started a very long time ago, and I've seen it sort of develop and progress. And I started actually as, back in the day, it was called an untrained childcare worker. So I left school at 16 and went straight to working in a long daycare centre as an untrained. And then I went off to TAFE and did the diploma, and then I went off to university and did my teaching degree, and then I went off and did my PhD, which was very silly, but I did it. And during that time, there has been so much research, beautiful research, in how the first 5 years of life are so important for children. Hence why we now have the National Quality Framework, and we have the Early Years Learning Framework to really nurture and support those first 5 years of life. Okay. So let's now talk about the brain. So I just mentioned the first 5 years. Oh, sorry, I knew I bought another prop. What I didn't put on the slide is there's an organisation called Early Childhood Australia, which I believe you as a centre are a member of, and they're a peak organisation with amazing resources and wonderful articles and everything. They actually did a statement on play because they realised it was needed. So that's another wonderful thing that educators can use to guide and nurture their understanding of how children best learn. So let's think about the brain. So I'm sure all of you will know that children are amazing absorbers of information. So they're not born as a blank slate, as often early research was. It was known that they start learning in the womb, and they start to know voices, they start to know people, and then when they're born, they are just making so many brain connections. And when you see the research, the brain is so busy and it's so full and it's branching out in so many directions. And they're like mini computers. They're just taking in so much information. And then they start trying to sort out what all that information is. And I put an image of a horse. So they might, you might be reading a book with them, and there might be a horse. And so you say horse, and you talk about neigh, and they go, okay, right, it's a horse and neigh. Then you might be reading another book, or there's a TV show, and there's a zebra, and they will go horse. And then because that's what you've talked about, a horse. And then you go, actually, no, that's a zebra. And they go, hold on a minute, I've got my little schema over here, that's what they're called using technical term, of a horse. Now you've just thrown in another thing. That's a zebra. Now I've got to change it, and I've got another category. And this is what they're doing about everything. So every time you speak with them, every time you read to them, every time they watch shows and things. So again, you need to be mindful of these beautiful, amazing brain connections that they are making, and your role was as the key person at home, and then the educators know that their role is about scaffolding their learning and speaking with them and extending their brain connections. The brain starts to taper off around 8 or 9 and goes on forever. But anyway, we're always learning. So now let's look and focus in a bit about play. So I've chosen, these are actually my 2 children and my niece. And I wanted you to look at the 2 images. Can you see this one up here? Everyone, sorry. I wanted to sort of show that here, yes, they're playing with Lego, and here you've got an image of Lego. But what I want to point out is the differences between these 2 images. The top one here is showing a finished product Lego. So what do adults and children normally do to achieve that? What do? They follow the instructions. They follow the destructions, I call them. Yeah, so that's what everyone does. They buy Lego. They buy it in a box with that image. It's got to look like that. Or you might get one that can be 3 things. Woohoo, that's exciting. You know, but you buy the box, you've got the destructions, you open it up and you've got to follow brick by brick and step by step, page by page. And then you have this amazing, beautiful thing, and it gathers dust. Okay? If you provide them with a tub of Lego.
I feel like we never used to get that back in the day. When I grew up, I didn't have
a destruction book, did you?
Box of
yeah.
That you had to put
Hence, my children are now adults. So that's what they had. They had a tub of Lego, and you will see on the floor all the different types of thing they were creating. That actually was during school holidays. It stayed out for 4 days. Do you know how painful that was? But I knew the benefits, so I let it be. And it just kept expanding, and it started heading into different areas in the house, because they just kept seeing the possibilities. So their imagination, their brain was coming up with thoughts and ideas and being creative. They weren't just building and that's the finished product. So it's about who is benefiting. What are the children learning by following instructions? They're learning that there's a start and an end, isn't it? It's just start and end, and there's a set process they must take. Whereas if you remove those distractions, the instructions that destruct creativity, they will have a lot more open-ended opportunities. Okay, and then you can get in there too and create with them and come in with ideas. So then you think of how is that preparing them for school? So what are the maths concepts they're working on? So think about the younger ones. They could be thinking, how many bricks am I going to need to make this a bit higher? So they start looking at numbers. They start thinking spatial awareness. The physics of it. Is it going to fall over if I build it really thin and high and I keep going and keep going, and next minute it falls? Okay, problem solving. So they're going to have to work it out. So the maths, the science of it, the language, especially if they're working with other children or with adults, you're talking about it. You're voicing through what you're thinking of. You're deciding what you might create, deciding what you might create next, deciding to destruct it and pull it apart and start again. So there's always language. Writing. Did you know they're actually preparing for writing in this? They're using their fine motor. Using your fingers is called the fine motor skills. So they're working on their fine motor so that they're ready to hold pens and pencils. Okay, so the eye-hand coordination as well, really important. So all those prior to school tasks that they're learning on, just from working with Lego. They're still working on the pre-writing and the language and things if they're doing it structured, but again, just think of the possibilities. So let's move on to other playing things. So again, I know this is very popular. You buy costumes. So they're often quite limited as to what they are. So if they're in a superhero especially, I know there's still a place for it and they love it, and maybe Disney princesses and things like that. And as you know, Dara and I love Disney, so I have nothing against Disney princesses, don't get me wrong. But it's, again, they will put on that costume and that's who they are. It's quite limited. They've decided for the day or for this time I'm going to be this character or this profession, or I'm going to be a mermaid for a while. Whereas if you provide them with more open-ended resources such as this image, which isn't very clear here, what this is lots and lots of pieces of material. So that then they can decide what they want to be. So a piece of material they can do as a veil, or a piece of material may become a skirt, or it can become a jacket, or they can just watch how it floats in the breeze. But they have a lot more flexibility to again use their brain and make those brain connections and their imagination, so that it's a lot more what we call open-ended. So there's endless possibilities. Again, they're using those problem-solving skills. How am I going to secure this? How am I going to change it up? What am I going to connect with it? So those problem-solving, those spatial awareness again, as to where, if they might be creating to use it as a tablecloth, is the piece of material going to be big enough? Do I need a bigger one or a smaller one? Again, language. Hopefully they're with others and they're talking about it. You'll even hear them talk to themselves. They often talk to themselves and talk their way through what they're doing and their decision making. So again, they're constantly learning. And again, to tie knots and to do things, they're using their small motor skills, their fine motor, their hand-eye coordination. So again, all that learning ready for school. Any of the team here, if you want to add anything, any examples you've had or anything, I'd love to hear from you as well. I said Jared had to join in, but he said no. So when we're really focusing on that problem solving, so here I have an image of a child with an iPad. And so again, what they're learning, yes, there is place for technology. I see that. I'm not saying that there isn't, but it is very much about deciding it and seeing the limitations. Again, the problem solving of a particular task they might be doing is just they've got to make sure that there's a start and the end, and they've got to keep doing the same thing to get the end result and things. It's not open-ended. A lot of things on iPads, and especially apps and games, are very limiting. Mind you, there are some that are amazing that are more, creative, like using just the camera on the iPad really opens up their opportunities of what they can take photos of. They can create movies, they can create cartoons and things. There's amazing things available. But if you're just using little app things, they're often very closed and very limiting. Whereas if you provide them with blocks, which I can see a beautiful shelf full of blocks over here, that's got endless possibilities, and they can always keep adding more things. Like you'll see there's some marbles and pieces in there that we call loose parts, that are smaller things that they can keep adding and being a lot more creative. And you can see how many children are involved there, bringing in a bit of looks like a Mobilo truck. So that's another construction sort of manipulative resource that they've created a sort of, it is a digger, and he's going to scoop up the marbles. So again, they can create a story, and again, it can be endless, and they can keep adding to it, and they can either pack it away or keep going and having an opportunity to revisit. Again, thinking about all those skills and those prior to skill things at school, skills that they are learning and using through this. So there's so much learning taking place, like an unbelievable amount. And if you get to read some of the observations in some of the beautiful floor books, I noticed the books in the front foyer that the educators work so hard doing, you will see that they're observing and acknowledging and noticing all this beautiful work and beautiful learning your children are doing, and they're sharing that with you. So take the time to really look and see how much your children are learning each day. It's beautiful. Expression and imagination, again, you see a lot when the children are younger. You get a lot of these what I call plastic fantastic type of toys where you press a button and a bell rings, bells and whistles. And that's great the first few times they use it, but then they get a bit sick of it because they know that button's always going to sound like that, and that button's always going to do this, and it's the same. And then it becomes sort of null and void. Whereas you open a cupboard to some, metal mixing bowls or some plastics, and they will have the time of their life. And they will be really creative. I'm sure you've got a cupboard or a drawer at home that for your younger ones, you can definitely let them have open range, free range access to those cupboards. And again, of course a colander has to go in there. Colander's always made to be a helmet. That's what it's meant for. And then you've got to bring the horses in because the horses are bound to do something with colanders. Okay, so it's amazing again where their imagination will take them, and just sitting back and listening to them and watching them, you'll be just again blown away with what they come up with and how creative they can be. So children's agency. So again, children's agency is in the National Quality Standard, and it's in the Early Years Learning Framework. And this is where children have the opportunity to make choices and decisions about things that impact their life and their world. So again, here, when you have a child-directed experience, what it means is it's not the educator sitting there and telling the child, okay, you need to get your red crayon now, and I want you to draw a circle, and then you're going to do here, and then you're going to get some glue, and you're going to stick this here. It's not about that at all. It's not about the adults directing the children's learning. It's about them making a decision, number one, which learning experience they're going to be involved in. I can see that agency is offered around this room all the time because they have all these resources available to them. So they're allowed to make choices and decisions as to which resources they wish to engage in and how they wish to engage with them. And that's where agency comes in. So again, when it comes to their writing, or they want to draw, or they want to do whatever they want with some papers and pencils or colours, it's not restrictive. They're able to, again, use their imagination and really think about, what am I going to draw? What does that look like? Okay, I'm going to draw a dog. What do I have to think about when I'm going to draw a dog? Is this dog's going to have a head? Yes. How many eyes? Is it going to be side on, front on? You know, so lots of thinking has to happen. Whereas if you give them a stencil by colouring in, you're saying, okay, you're going to colour in this instance, Fireman Sam. So, what is Fireman Sam? He's got to have his hat. What colour is his hat? Okay, you better use red, and you've got to stay in the lines because you can't go outside the lines. Really restrictive, really telling the child that they can't then express themselves or make decisions about how they want to create what they want to create. So again, it may seem like fun, and it's an easy thing to do, is to print out some stencils or buy a colouring in book and give them to them. Again, that's better than sitting on an iPad, I personally feel. But if you give them some paper and some scissors and some pencils and some textures, and they can just do things endlessly. So, because they can be really creative. They may choose to get a book and use that as a bit of a guide, as a springboard or provocation into what they may want to draw or create. Is this all making sense? Yeah, okay, good, all right. Again, this is it. Another thing that I've often had a lot of families come to me and say, I want my child to be able to count and start doing some number problems and things before they go to school. Trust me, they're going to do similar to that when they're at school. They don't need it in their early childhood years. They really don't. The main focus is they're comfortable and confident with who they are, and they're socially and emotionally ready for the school environment. So that's about. I personally feel it's not about getting the child ready for the school. Schools should be getting ready for children, not the other way around. But we can't change the school system in a day. And we've been trying for years, but we can't. So here, again, you've got this very structured and very limited, and you're telling them there's these numbers and you can only think of these numbers. Whereas here, again, we've got some just things from outside and loose parts. So again, they're thinking about, what do I want to create? What's the pattern? What's the shape? What do I need to use to create this? How many do I need to use? Okay, so again, giving them a chance to do that problem solving. And again, as educators, that they will come in and they'll ask them questions about that, and what made you think of that? What were you thinking of when you were doing those sorts of things? What made you choose those? I like how you chose those. What do you think you might be doing next? And, you know, again, expanding and getting them to think further. So reading and communicating. This particular image is a little bit more child-directed, a little bit, in that it's actually up to the child to decide if they want to write the happy fathers. There's no day there, but anyway, this is an image of them. But again, it would have been told, okay, you're going to create a card and it's going to say this. Rather than, again, I noticed the books at the front, it's beautiful, the children's voices are there. So things that the children have said, they've written it down exactly how they've said it. So it's more to say, okay, what would you like to create? Would you like to create a card? What would you like to say? Would you like me to write it for you, or would you like to write it? And that's what it is, giving them a choice to have an opportunity of how they want to communicate. Again, really important, lots of reading. So as much as you can at home, they get books here and lots of opportunities to read, but you can never read too much. Okay, they're really so important. It's again that learning outcome 5 where it talks about children are effective communicators. It isn't actually just about their verbal communication. It's a lot about understanding about how the symbols work together and how the symbols come together to make words and to make meaning, which is preparing them for school. So it's preparing them for reading, and they will start to recognise symbols. And as they get older, you can put things around the house in labels. Please remember, if you do want to start helping them write their name, please don't teach them to write it in capitals. Okay? Okay, their first letter is
Very
capital.
hard.
And then it's sentence, so it's sentence structure. So you've got to help them with lowercase because capitals and lowercase are very, very different. And yes, if you teach them all capitals, they've got to unlearn that. And can I tell you, sure you know as adults, it's so much harder to unlearn something than it is to learn something. So if you do want to help them, it is helping them by understanding that there's one capital and then lowercase. Another thing is too, which I'm sure I haven't, there's probably here and I haven't seen it yet, I didn't really look for it though, is name recognition. So you'll probably see their name, there's usually their name on lockers, their name on their clothing. So they're often, you might want to do some, you know, cards or anything, a piece of cardboard or something with their name on it. Again, so they start to recognise and you can talk about the sounds of their names. And again, that can just be an everyday conversation. I want to share a story about, I have one of my aunties who was a teacher also, and my cousin is now married with his own children, but when he was little, she helped him understand, you know, about letters and reading. So they pulled into a petrol station back in the day when they used to have, you know, super petrol, and he goes, S-U-P-E-R, super. And Auntie Liz goes, yes, Adam, that's so good. That does say super, well done. And he looks across then later and he goes, L-A-D-I-E-S, toilet. So, you know, again, they start to learn letters, but they may not always understand what the word is yet. But it's still a starting point. He got all the letters right, but he just didn't fully understand the way it went. But that, again, will happen at school. Don't stress too much now. Just help them start understanding about those different symbols. When you're reading, you know, run your finger along the word as you're reading it out, so that they can see that the words you're saying is those funny squiggles on the paper are words, and that will really help them to start making those connections about the written word and the spoken word. Interactions, extremely important. So learning with others. And I'm not getting into theorists, but Vygotsky, well, the educators will know that. But again, there's so much research through the years that, and I'm sure you also know, you know, about learning from others and connecting with others and getting ideas and bouncing ideas off others. So here again, this is more an image where, okay, you've got an outline and here's cartoony images of fruit and veggie, and you've got to match it to the outline. I mean, there's so much research too to say and to share with children connect so much more. If you're helping them to learn factual things, especially what vegetables or fruit look like, it is so much better they have the real thing or they have real images of it, because it makes those more realistic connections. By having these sort of funny cartoon, they may look good, but they're actually not helping them make those factual connections. Okay? So again, it's also limiting to, you're saying them, this is what a carrot's got to look like and it's got to go here. Whereas when you give them a bunch of carrots, especially if you go to Woolies, is it Woolies or Coles, and get the odd bunch? I love those ones. Because they can see the possibilities of what carrots can really look like. Not every carrot is beautiful and this long and perfect. Some of them have, you know, extra sprigs out and things like that. So it's really good to see, for children to see these different things, even if you can grow some things, so they know that not everything's bought at the supermarket. You know, that they can actually grow some parsley or, you know, anything. Even if you're in units, you can grow some more small things and they love it. Birdseed's really quick and easy to grow if you just want to chuck that in and help them see the outcome of that. They love that. But this image down here was actually during winter, and the experience was they were looking at food as medicine, and so they were looking at like citrus, like orange and lemon, to help them with coughs and colds. And so I was talking about vitamin C, and they were, you know, using those real fruits as provocations to do some drawing, and then it's actually a jar of honey there, and they were just sort of understanding, and they were doing some research on an iPad, again, when I think technology is really great when you use it as a research tool. And here we had one of the parents come in, and they were about to chop up some veggies and make actually vegetable pizzas. So again, some of those things were actually. Yeah, they did, because some of the veggies, all the cherry tomatoes and some of the snow peas were actually, we had a garden at this centre as well, and so they actually picked the produce, they cooked it, and then they actually ate it.
I love the idea of making it with vegetables on their commodities.
Oh no, it's amazing what peer group pressure will happen if it happens at a centre. They see other children eating.
Vegetables over there.
No, sometimes they're more like
Yes, it's been having a bite of a carrot.
Yeah, I get it. It's not always that easy, but even just the learning aspect of creating it is beautiful, even if they don't end up eating it, but at least that sort of creation is wonderful. And it's really, really important. The more they...
I just interject.
Definitely.
Sheldon just mentioned that a parent came in, did a cooking activity with the children. That's something I like to see happen here a lot more.
We want you to feel you belong here. You community centre, this is yours. You have agency as well. You have rights to be here, and you are encouraged to come and spend as much time. And we're not just to come and visit, to just read a book or something like that, to come and spend time, and naturally, when you hopefully have time, come in and engage with the children. Even if you don't feel you have a skill or need to come and cook or don't want to do that, even just coming and being here and spending some time with the children, they will love it, you will love it, and you'll see the beautiful learning that's happening.
It could be like your favourite hobby you can discuss, or what you
Your
do at work.
Yep.
Or what you do on your holidays, or stories from your previous country or national days. All that stuff helps build celebrations, and also more awareness, more information that children are actually sponging up.
Yeah. The more they get to experience different people and involved in sort of collaborative work, it helps them with their social and emotional development, ready for school, so they're used to connecting with others, and then self-regulation, which is helping them with their learning who they are and how to respond to challenging situations. The more they practice that, the more they're going to cope better with it. And life skills. Again, children are so capable. Do you get them to help you unpack the shopping? Do you get them to help pack away and fold clothes and put washing on? And they love doing that. Get them to clean. It's not child labour, I promise. They love to be involved. Get them involved as much as you can, and it'll keep them so busy they won't want the iPads, okay, or the phones. If you keep them so busy and occupied, it's a chance to chat, it's a chance to catch up, it's a chance to just talk about everything. That's what the other involvement. Yeah, so I've already just shared a lot about that. Again, the more you connect with them, the more they're going to learn. The more you can connect with them here, the more everyone benefits. And I know you're all busy, but if you can even just once a year make some time to pop in and spend some time, I'm sure the educators will love it, and definitely the children. Okay. Now, hopefully, some of you are amazing and have home languages. I don't. I'm one of those terrible people that only speak one language, which is such a waste. I tried 4 years of German at school, and I still can't speak it. It's terrible. But if you are blessed to have 1 or 2 or 3 languages, please encourage your child to learn it as well, because it is a real benefit. A lot of the time, families get a bit nervous that the child needs to just focus on one language, but children are born multilingual. They are able to actually speak many languages, and it's about nurturing that and supporting that and helping them through it, that they will be able to do it. I remember there was one child at one of the centres I was at, and Dad spoke French, so she was learning French and English, and we had a student come and do a professional experience at the centre, and the student spoke French, so she started talking to Chloe in French, and Chloe was 3, and she just looked at her wide eyes and went, "Oh no, only papa," like this. She just didn't want to speak French to anyone else, which she thought was quite cute. She thought it's only with Dad she speaks French. But it definitely is beautiful. And we are one of the most absolute beautiful, rich, multicultural societies. And so I really encourage you, even if you don't speak a second language, having your children learn another language, if you have that possibility or opportunity, it is really rich for them and really good. Okay, so again, as much family involvement as possible. That's a bit blurry. You know, sharing songs, stories, poems, and rhymes. If you've had, some songs you have learnt as a child, and you've taught your children or child, you can come in here and teach all the children the songs you know. Okay, teach the educators new songs, because you get a bit sick of the songs you know. Okay, and we're not relying on TikTok and things for songs. Thank you. That's me. I want you to go forth and enjoy and play lots. Life is too short and too boring not to play. So as an adult, play. Okay, that's it.
Questions?